Yeah, what's good, everybody? It's your boys. It is Tuesday night, time for Flyers Talk A to D. Your boy Dales, your boy Pove. We're coming at you live. We're going to talk Maxim Shabanov. Is he going to be a Flyer or not? There were a lot of rumors that he did sign a contract and that a deal was done, and haven't heard much since. What's going on with that? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the two new assistant coaches to add to the bench with the great, I'm going to say great loosely, Rick Tocchet on the bench for the Philadelphia Flyers. Should be an interesting season. So hit that like, hit that subscribe. The conversation starts now. It's time to go talk some puck.
This is Flyers Talk A2D, and we are powered by the doc. That is Dr. Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy LLC, with two locations in Burlington and Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Check out our doc, make them yours. Visit them at specializedphysicaltherapy.com. As you can see, Matt Sensudi is off this week, but luckily, once again, we do have a strong PK tandem here at Flyers Talk A2D with Brian Daly and yours truly, Rob Povia. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe for notifications to all your favorite shows here on A2D Radio. Now, as Brian alluded to, Rick Tocchet's coaching staff is starting to take shape. So we're going to discuss the new Flyers bench coaches and how these hires are going to help this team improve and take that next step forward going into the new season. But first, rumor has it there will be a new Russian dynamo in the orange and black. Or will there be? We want your opinion on our face-off poll, which is the Flyers' relationship with the KHL makes them the favorite to land star Maxim Shabanov. Agree or disagree? We're going to be reading your comments all throughout the podcast, which is available to download the minute we sign off from wherever you download your favorite pods. Brian, there's a lot of teams that are in on this Russian sensation. Do the Flyers have a decided edge because of Michkov and other relations in the past?
Yeah, I think they do, because you saw what happened with Matvey Michkov, and nobody expected him to be over as quickly as he did. So to me, it's absolutely telling me that the Flyers have a very good relationship with what's going on over in the KHL, and I think that is absolutely going to be a big reason why, if the Flyers sign Shabanov, that's going to be a big reason why. He's a 24-year-old, very talented kid who has some scoring upside, more of a playmaker in my mind than a scorer. Did have 23 goals in 65 games in his last season. But, I mean, to me, I'm a little bit worrisome with this kid. Not necessarily anything bad, but we'll get a little bit more into it as we get into more of the conversation. I do think that, because, you develop a relationship with them, you can get your guys a little bit earlier, and that even goes into, you got Fedotov, you got him a little bit later than you expected, but you still got him over. You got Kolosov a little bit earlier than expected. Who knows? We may even get Zavragin a little bit earlier than expected. So, in order to have a good relationship with these organizations, it makes it easier for you to get these players over. And I think I absolutely 110% agree with Paul. I think the great relationship is going to help them land Shabanov.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you, and I tend to agree with this poll myself. But a lot of the majority of the context really lie with Dynamo Minsk organization. So, yes, the Flyers' relationship, recent history of working with the KHL is a major factor in them potentially netting Maxim Shabanov. But, it's he's with what was Shabanov's KHL team is
It's just
my name.
Shabinsky, Shabanovsk.
Right. Now, they haven't really had the relations particularly with that organization. So, there's a lot of familiarity. Like where I was talking about to you, pre-show that, Shabanov, he briefly played with Igor Zamula, on track for his under-16 team. and his agent Alexander Cherenik also represents Igor Zavragin.
Mm-hmm.
He also skated with Ivan Demidov at the KHL All-Star game. So he's had, a lot of exposure, but particularly with the Flyers, they might have a little bit of a leg in, but that's not to say that teams like the New York Islanders, the Pittsburgh Penguins, who have been rumored to be in on the young phenom, 24 years old, it stands that it does give the Flyers a leg up because of how they've worked with the KHL overall in the past, and there's that connection with Trackfur, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think ultimately, into what's going to boil down to, Brian, is that we have to get to the draft. We have to get to when free agency opens up, and that's when there's going to be serious talks with agents. Until then, this is all conjecture. Yeah. But people were marking it down like it was a done deal here in Philadelphia.
No, they absolutely were, and his agent even came out and said it's not a done deal yet. Like, I don't know why everybody's reporting this, but I mean, the Flyers are definitely the favorite, I think, because of, well, like you just said, they share the same agent as Zavragin, who's within the organization. I mean, you have a guy like Michkov in there that's already a dynamo in the NHL, which, it sucks that he didn't get any Calder votes or even finish in the top 3, but, it is what it is. NHL has a bias, but, it's this makes them more favorable because there's guys that he can relate to, guys that he can develop relationships with and not feel like he's standing alone, which is, I think, has been Kolosov's biggest issue, is he feels like he's on an island by himself. I think he would be the only reason or only thing that would help, well, not help this deal get done, but you got to look at all the positives. You bring in, and we'll talk about him a little bit more later in the show. You bring in the bench coach, the power play coach from Vancouver from last year, who is he's a Czech player, but I mean, has developed a good relationship with a lot of really good talent. Had Vancouver's power play going pretty nuts at 22.5%. That's an absolute bonus. I think that these are pieces that are going to lure players like this to the city for that particular reason. What's up, Benny? I see Mike Dunn in the chat. I see Priz in the chat. What's going on, fellas?
And let it be known, Priz was the first one to suggest the Flyers acquiring Caden Primo. I do want to give him his just due, opposed to last week. What up, Priz? What up? What's up, Swoopy?
Hey,
What's
Swoopy.
Up? Appreciate you. But no, you make good points, though, Brian. I mean, what it boils down to is that this kid is going to be an asset, right? So, but I won't lie, I'm concerned about Shabanov's small frame. He's 5'8", ranging between 157 and 170 pounds. And you wonder how his game and his durability is going to translate to the North American hockey game. I mean, but you have to love the skill set here. I hear the other side as well. And I think the Flyers should very well be in on Shabanov because he's drawing comparisons to Kirill Kaprizov. That's good company. Mm-hmm. Plus, because of his age, the Flyers see him as a very low-risk, high-reward signing because he's going to be eligible for that entry-level two-way deal.
No,
and that's not bad for one of the most NHL-ready Russians in free agency this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, that's my only concern is it's not talent. It's not his hands. It's not his speed. It's not his ability. It's nothing that I am concerned about his size. It's not necessarily his height because there's guys in the league that are just as big as him or tall as him. It's his weight. He's 15 to 20 pounds lighter than a Cole Caulfield, a Johnny Gaudreau. So he would be, I guess he would kind of be height-wise be in the same conversation as Nathan Gerbe, but, Gerbe was bigger than 157 pounds, we'll call it. We'll say soaking wet, he's 157 pounds. Good thing is he can put weight on, so that's not necessarily a bad thing, but how much weight is this kid going to be able to put on? That's my concern. The NHL is a much more physical game than the KHL. KHL is more speed and finesse. There are guys that can hit, and there are bigger guys that you have to deal with, but when you come to the NHL, it's a much grittier game. And if he's going up against a guy that's 6'5" and 230 pounds and he gets crushed, you're going to have to bring out a body bag with the stretcher to get him off the ice. And you might even have to scrape him off the ice because he's going to just be absolutely destroyed. That's where my concern is. Just his weight. He is not a big kid by any means, but that doesn't mean that he can't put on 15 to 20 pounds of solid muscle. And if that's the case and they can get him into a program where they can get his weight up, okay, I'm all about it. Let's get this kid on the ice. But again, that still puts him at like 177 pounds.
Right. Which, yeah, that's exactly what we're looking at in terms of a max out for him, right? 170, I think, was the most he's towed, weighed in, so to speak. Use little UFC terminology there. But yeah, you talk about, with Michkov, talking about a 19, 20-year-old kid, right? Michkov is young, but he's 24. So at this point, yeah, like I agree with you. How much muscle can you put on, how much weight, can you put on? But what by all counts, by all reports, everything I've looked into today, Brian, right? This player has and we'll get into some highlights. We got some awesome video in store for you. I'm going to give love to the provider, to Flux CC. They'll be on the screen later with the video. But, this is a kid that with the idea of pairing him with Michkov would be absolutely electric. And Michkov is doing his best to woo Shabanov, even following him on Insta. So he's all in on it, right? And with that hockey IQ that I mentioned, Brian, right? He knows how to get himself in good positions and not take the hit. So we've seen a certain Flyers GM really epitomize that, and Danny Briere, who was also a small guy. Mm-hmm. And when did you ever see him really get crushed? Right? Always in good spots on the ice. So maybe it takes one to know one. And I mean, any GM, like you said, Danny B is not the only GM that's interested in this kid. But I mean, I'm just going to rattle through a couple career highlights. In the 2024-25 KHL season, Shabanov was a standout, scoring 23 goals and 67 points in 65 regular season games, which ranked third in the KHL in scoring and second in assists with 44. He added 10 goals and 20 points in 21 playoff games, though Tractor did lose in the Gargarian Cup final, which is, I guess, their equivalent to the Stanley Cup. He was a finalist for the KHL's MVP award, which is very cleverly called the Golden Stick. Known for elite skating, to your point before, Brian, speed, puck handling. In these highlights, we're going to see how he just has that right on a string, right on the end of his blade, and a really quick release, especially on breakaways. You're going to see in these highlights as well. Despite being that undersized weight, that agility and that hockey IQ really make him that dynamic winger. He was a pending free agent, attracting NHL interest from Flyers, Penguins, Vegas Golden Knights are reportedly in on him, New York Islanders, Tampa Bay Lightning. So and Tractor's GM did indeed confirm that he would be embarking on a new journey in the NHL. So that's what's led to the speculation, but we'll have to see exactly where this young man lands, Brian, because he's put up 20 plus goals in 2 consecutive seasons in the KHL and narrowly missed it back in 22-23 with 18. So he's got a nose for the net and he's got good playmaking ability too, which is a good, if you're looking for a guy to pair with Michkov, that's not a bad situation.
No, absolutely. This kid, like I said, he's a dynamo. You really literally just said everything. So that's gonna make it more interesting. And I'm seeing some of the comments saying, Priz was saying that he's gonna be probably put on some weight before training camp, and I'm with you on that, Priz. Mike Dunn said that he will put on weight and size and he'll be fine. I mean, I don't know how much more size he's going to put on 24, but he's definitely going to have to add that muscle. So if he can put on some of that muscle and get a little bit bigger for camp so he can sturdy out that frame a little bit, I agree. He's going to be just fine. And I think he could turn into a very solid middle six player for the Philadelphia Flyers and probably wind up playing on the line with Mitchkov for a little bit, just until he gets accompanied to the NHL. Because I think who better to put him in a situation than to put him on the line with Mitchkov, because this is another kid coming over from the KHL who has to learn the North American game. Who better to learn from than the kid who just did it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
so it's so fresh in his mind.
Absolutely. And I forget who chimed in with it. I want to say potentially is Benny, right? That we're putting a lot of our eggs in one basket in terms of the Russian net. We already have 5 players that hail from Russia. This could be a 6th. Does that hamstring the Flyers potentially with, geopolitical events? I mean, at this point, Brian, what's your take on that?
Honestly, when it comes to all that stuff, I try and stay out of it, because it's honestly just to me, it's taking 2 separate worlds here and bringing them into one. And to be honest with you, I don't want to take any political stances on anything. Just not my style. But I mean, honestly, for me, I don't care if they can play. They can play. I'm just going to keep it that cut and dry. It's if they can play, they can play. The geopolitical part, to me, it doesn't mean much to me.
And they've seemed to work really well around it, despite the world events too, and have kept quote unquote church and state separate. So we should hear too at Flyers Talk A2D. I'm in accordance with that as well. But I feel that when you want these guys to transition to the North American game, when you have a family for them to come into, I think that's a good thing. And
Absolutely.
and let's face facts, things are at least pointing in a positive direction with ceasefire talks and things like that. So we'll just pray that happens and that the world calms down and we can all appreciate and love this game of hockey that we like to talk about week in and week out.
Absolutely.
One interesting note I want to bring up, and like I alluded to before, Brian, that, a lot of people were saying this was a done deal, but it really is speculation until the draft and free agency opens up. But I want to read off this quote specifically from Shabanov's agent, Alexander Cherenik, who's denying the rumors that it's a done deal. He says, "We're still in the process of talking with teams," plural, Cherenik said. "Right now, we're waiting for the draft because that's when trades happen and team situations change. Then the free agency will open. We want to see how the league landscape looks. It's not a fast process." And that makes a lot of sense because a lot could happen from now until then, until next offseason. And you want to put your client in the best situation possible, don't you, Brian?
No, absolutely. And whether it winds up being in Philadelphia or anywhere else, I 100% agree. You need to put him in a much better situation. And we don't really know what that situation is going to be. There's going to be a ton of speculation until a deal is signed. But like I said in the beginning of the show, I think the Flyers have the edge just because they have such a good relationship with guys over in Russia. And even what you said earlier, what makes a guy more comfortable than coming into a situation where you're going to be welcomed like a member of the family. And I think right now, with where the Flyers are, as far as like a lot of their, I'm trying to come up with a good way to say this. So kind of like with all the Russians that they have in the locker room, I think it's a welcoming situation for him to come into and maybe not necessarily make an impact right away, but maybe pull like a Cutter Gauthier, have a little bit of a slow start, get acclimated to the speed, get acclimated to the style, and then start popping off goals like crazy. Which I think is an absolutely realistic thing for them to do is that situation. But like I said, I want to see. I'm with Mike. Like I'm ready to see this team win. Like I've seen the Eagles win twice. I've seen the Phillies win once. When's the Flyers' turn? I've seen them get to it a couple times, but when's their turn? When are they going to get a chance to raise the cup? I don't give a shit about the Sixers though. Like, meh, go away, basketball. The NBA is a joke. I know Luke won't like that, but sorry, Luke.
My love is hockey, and I would love to see the Flyers. I mean, as a lot of us, as we passed recently the 50th anniversary since they last hoisted Lord Stanley's Cup. But we'll pray for it, Mike. We're with you, brother. Robert Wilson chiming in saying, if we get Shabanov, that will be great. And it will, because he does bring a lot to the table, as we're about to see. I'm going to share this highlight reel, like I said, once again, courtesy of Flux CC. And you have the subscribing information there on the screen.
And while you do that, Mike, I feel you, brother. I feel you. You bleed for the city. Anybody that's a fan of Philly, you bleed for it, and I get it. Like that's see Benny's comment too here real quick before we do that. He
absolutely
says
the fans' comments come first.
Yeah. Benny said, sorry, that's not the question. It's about what Russian government pulling these players back. Not whether it's okay. I mean, I don't necessarily know if it's the Russian government that's holding these players back or if it's just their KHL contracts. I know with Fedotov was a little different. He had to serve in the military for a year. I don't know if that's like, I don't know what the deal with that was, because it didn't seem like Michkov has to. It didn't seem like Zavragin has to. Not exactly sure what's going on over there, but I mean, again, I don't know. I don't know if it's a KHL or if it's Russia or whatever the heck is going on over in that crazy country.
Well, I mean, it remains a possibility. Anybody can be called the military service, I guess, according to their bylaws. But the thing of it is that, you know, this is why I addressed it before, like such that things are cooling down, and we've seen it work around the sports world, because that is the escape for, you know, the whole world, including, you know, fans of the KHL and fans of Maxim Shabanov. So let's hit this highlight reel.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, let me get rid of this banner here real quick. Where that poll question at? There it is. Bye. Bye, girl.
We're getting this spinning wheel of death.
Oh no.
No.
Oh no.
Pull it off, and then I'll once I get it started, I'll let you know.
Word. All right. In the meantime,
and it just did as soon as you.
It's just a damn heaven, I swear. I mean, kid's got speed. Look at those filthy mitts.
And you're going to see both goals and assists here. Good hands, good presence behind the net. It certainly, reminds me of like a Zegras, like a Kaprizov, pulled off of Michigan in this highlight reel, I believe. We'll see.
Yep, absolutely. I saw the Michigan that he did. He just looked so effortless. It was so quick. This kid is got all the talent in the world. Like I said, look at all that open ice. It makes it so much easier for that was dirty. It makes it so much easier for a kid at his size to be able to operate so quickly and so smoothly, because there's a lot more space out there than in the NHL. So, he can be the weight that he is and be extremely successful in this league. Again, that's my one and only concern about him.
Right. Look at this helper too.
Ew.
Filthy.
Ew.
One-handed backhand helper in front of the net. He has a presence of just get it in front of the net. So there's that hockey IQ.
Mm-hmm. Get it. I mean, absolutely. Just drive it to the net. It's like the cliche hockey where you just got to get pucks in deep and drive the net.
And one thing I'm seeing consistently here is him hitting open ice, right? Staying in good areas to our point before.
Yep. It's knowing it's offensive awareness, and it seems like it's very high. He knows where the open ice is going to be. He knows where he wants to go when he has the puck, or he knows where he wants to be when somebody else has the puck. So, that's going to be awesome with creating offense, and it's going to give him such a huge benefit. He's going to be a huge benefactor because of that. That's one thing that Michkov has done so well in his rookie year, was figuring out ways to find open ice. It's going to be massive for this kid moving forward. We'll watch a couple more here real quick.
Yeah, definitely. And then cut it off. We
Look
don't
at that.
want to, impose too much on this feed here. But again, let me get that information there for Flux CC as I get the spinning wheel of death. But maybe we
Guess that's a sign.
Yeah, that's a sign to
That's
cut
a
it.
signal.
At least we got the information out there for the peoples now. Cool. Before that happened, and then it plays.
Robert Wilson is Flyer Rob from the old WIP radio days. What's up, man? We got kind of a local celebrity going on in here. What's up, Rob? He also went on to say something about
appreciate you tuning in.
Of course. All right, so before we jump to that, I like Mike's question here because I think this brings up a solid point because this is a main concern for the Flyers this offseason, right, Rob? Do they draft a goalie with one of the first 3 first-round picks?
I really highly doubt it because you very rarely see goalies go early on in the first and second rounds anyway, potentially the third round being the time where you see most goaltenders go, even of a higher elk. And all we've heard about in the draft prospectus and mock drafts has been a really highlighting the center iceman, right? Which is, I think, a stronger point of need for the Flyers and where they should target the first rounds, where there's a lot of range of options that you could trade up or down to acquire, whether that be with your number 6 pick or your number 21.
Yep, 21.
Yeah, later on. To where you could potentially stay at 6, but move up from 21 and grab a guy on the back end like a Jay O'Brien or Jake O'Brien and Jay was it there? Jake O'Brien and Roger McQueen that we've talked about with this show. So I think that's going to be the point of emphasis, especially because of where you normally draft goaltenders, but also there is a depth of prospects with Zebregan, who we spoke about briefly, and his connections with Shabanov, but also Carson Bjarnson, right? You've already invested draft capital there, right? Maybe you bring in a Caden Primo on a cheap contract to stabilize your goaltending in the here and now, and then there's good behind the corner, right around the corner. So that would be my point of focus, Brian.
Okay. I'm gonna be opposing you on this one. I think number 6, because he's I focus on big body center, right? Higgins is going to be gone. Frendell potentially could be gone.
Right.
Got to take McQueen with 6. He's healthy. He's 100%. He says he feels great. He's looking good in the combine so far from what I've heard. So he's quickly building his draft stock. So there you go. McQueen 20 or 21. You can go either 21 or 32 and go goalie here, because there's 2 pretty good ones. You can potentially get them both in the second round too. But for me, keep the goalie carousel going here. Keep it going. If Ravensburgen is there at 21 or 32. Realistically, he'll probably still be there at 32. Go with Ravensburgen or Ivanchik or Ivanovic. Ivanovic? I think it's Ivanovic. Again, he's probably the more big-bodied, more talented goaltender, but you can't go wrong because that's your 1 and 2. I've seen a lot of mock drafts where he's getting taken at second in the second round by the Flyers. Big thing for them is they spent so long not drafting goaltenders, and it basically feels like ignoring the position that, now's the time to really start, keep that carousel going because you never know what's going to happen. Eriksson I love, but he's a tandem goalie. Fedotov is a backup goalie at best. He's 27, going to be 28. He is what he is at this point. He's not going to be any better. He's not going to be any worse. He's going to be a mediocre goaltender. Zavragan's probably going to be a franchise guy, but Lord knows when he's going to come over. And then Bjarnason, from what I'm hearing as far as his development goes, he's looking like he's just going to be a guy. So I don't necessarily think that taking a goaltender in the first round here or even early second round is necessarily a bad thing. That's the pipeline you really have to keep full, because otherwise, you run into the situation the Flyers are in now. And granted, this is an absolute, probably the most random thing that will ever happen to the Flyers as far as finally getting a goaltender.
Well, I don't know where you're saying just the guy. I mean, we have to see him in a full year in a Phantoms uniform, don't we, to make that assessment with Bjornsson?
No, I agree. I'm not saying that he's just a guy. I'm just from what I'm hearing as far as
there's conjecture out there, so you want to keep it full. I get it. I think you got to wait and see it. But your point is that he needs that full year in the AHL. Samantha Lynn, truth be told, right? But until then, you need another piece. And if you think Sam Ersson is just a guy, right? Team Sweden disagreed with you, and they selected him for the Four Nations, and he played pretty well there, and he can play pretty well. But if it's a tandem league, so you could still have development alongside with him. I think it's a good situation. I'm open to bringing in, on the NHL level, right? Because drafting goaltenders is such a crapshoot. Just to your point, and you make some good points, Brian. But I just think there's bigger needs on this team.
Oh, no, I totally agree. And that's where you're going to, for me, it's where you focus number 6 and number 21 is you focus on getting yourself a center at 6. Right. You can get a really solid defenseman at 21. And Robert wants to know who would we take of these 3 if they're there. I'll let you go first, Robbie.
For me, it's 1,000% Hagens. Frundell would be 2, and I like Desnoyers as well. I like it. He's good for size, and I think he's the much more talented of the family members. So and there's family members, so at least that would bode well for his development as well. So I like that list. I like that list a lot. But for me, it's Hagens 1, Frundell 2, and Desnoyers 3. What do you think, bro?
I'm with you. I'm just swapping Hagens and Frundell. I just think Frundell's the bigger body. He's the better full two-way player over Hagens. But I mean, you can't go wrong with either guy. My preference would be Frundell, because I like Coots kind of spoiled me through his early prime, where he was basically saying that, like, I can play both ways. I think having a Selke centerman is an absolute all right, so a silky centerman, I think, is an absolute need for any team, really. Try saying that one 3 times fast.
Very nice. I like that. Mr. Bo 99, welcome. Appreciate you tuning in. If you like what you're hearing, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. We got all shows on this network covering the 4 majors, covering Philly sports as a specialty. You got a lot of coverage with lazy booking back in the fray. Awesome interviews if you're a wrestling fan, as well as in this very ring, and lots of Eagles talk, lots of Sixers talk, lots of Phillies talk. So let's read his comment. For his size, it seems like Shabanov has very good balance. The Flyers should take low-risk chances like this before they swing big. And that makes such a good point, too, because it's not going to cost you a lot, too, right? To where if his body doesn't adapt to the North American game, if what we've seen has been more of an effect of the KHL, right, what is it really costing you? I think they got to be all in. But there's going to be some competition, though. We talked about it. Pittsburgh Penguins, New York Islanders, Vegas Golden Knights are all teams reportedly in on Shabanov services. So we'll see. But I fly, to tonight. If you're just joining us, tonight's poll is the Flyers really have a history with the KHL. So the Flyers' relationship with that league makes them the favorite to land star Maxim Shabanov. We'd love to hear from you. Agree or disagree in the comments. So let's move on, Brian, to there are new Philadelphia Flyers just behind the bench as Rick Tocchet is solidifying his coaching staff, and it's beginning to take shape. This past week, the Flyers added Yaroslav Slafkovsky and Jay Verde. Slafkovsky was an assistant with the Vancouver Canucks with Tocchet. And Jay Verde is coming to Philadelphia after working on the bench as an assistant coach for the Detroit Red Wings. So the question is how are these guys going to help this team improve and take a step forward next season?
Well, at least with first of all, shout out to Lenny. What's up, Lenny? It has been a minute, brother. Definitely miss having you in the chat. So with Yaroslav or Iggy, I think his name was Igor. I forget what his nickname is, but he's the power play guy with Vancouver, as I said earlier in the show, and he has absolutely been, really, really good. Obviously, a ton of elite talent there. Whatever happened there, I have no idea. What's up, Heather? No idea what happened over there with that team, but managed to have a 22.5% power play numbers. So that was good for about league average. Can't do any worse than what Rocky Thompson did with this power play all season, or the last few years that he's been here. So anywhere you look at this one, this is going to be an absolute upside hire. So I like it. I think this is going to be a really good hire for the Flyers moving forward. I think, I don't know much about Jay Verde. I was hoping that Don was going to be here, so maybe he can tell us a little bit about this guy. I'm assuming he's probably going to run something defensively, I would assume. But, I think one of the things that I'm excited about with this coaching staff is going to be the fact that, Tocchet is a pretty good defensive coach, and he does have a little bit more of a defensive mindset, but he can still put some creativity into the offense to get the offense going. I absolutely believe that, power play is definitely going to be improved. Now the question is just going to be how are we going to do the how's the penalty kill going to look? Because I think that's one thing that, the coaching staff from last year with Bradshaw and with John Tortorella, I thought that was something that was really one of the lone bright spots consistently was the penalty kill. So I don't know if Verde is going to have the penalty kill or not, but to me, I like the coaching staff. I'm definitely excited to see what they have in store. But like I said, at least with the power play, you can't be any worse than with Rocky Thompson. So there's definitely going to be an improvement there.
One would think.
Yeah.
Well, what I'll bring to the table on behalf of Don is that Jay Verde, he comes with an excellent reputation for coaching and developing young hockey players. So to me, this is my favorite hire, to be honest, of the two. I think this is going to really help this team grow as certainly we're talking about the kids that we will be drafting as well as the kids that are currently in this organization. So you need guys like that. You need guys that really feel the pulse, and you got to look at the young players for Detroit and how they developed. And case in point, Exhibit A is Dylan Larkin, who has become an elite player in this league. So I like that history. I like what he brings, and I like how it's a different voice from Tocchet because it trickles its way up, Brian. So This is a wonderful opportunity where Rick Tocchet has never had an opportunity to grow with a team, right? So as we said, this was some of the negatives that we criticized with the hires, that he's the guy that you bring in when you're ready to win more. So that's why it's curious, but he could grow in a city that he loves, and bringing in a different voice like this is going to help. And whether that adds to the defensive mindedness of the team, that would be good because you need another voice to bounce things off of. Tocchet is phenomenal, to your point, Brian. Vancouver Canucks over the past 2 years giving up the fourth least power play goals 5-on-5. That's going to be a huge asset if you can bring that to the Philadelphia Flyers, and Verde can help with that. But if that's Sapkowski as well, he did help him bring that in Vancouver. So it'll be brought one way or another because of that familiarity between Tocchet and Yaroslav. But so far so good. I mean, like I said, there was speculation that Luke Richardson would be hired. I think this officially extinguishes that, or do you think there could be another hire still?
I've heard that rumor. I think Robert actually just dropped that in the chat as well. Said rumor has it the Flyers want a third. I'm pretty sure you actually probably just said that now that I'm thinking about it. Sorry, my brain's all over the place right now. I'm trying to respond to comments and get comments up on the screen, but so
we're on the PK tonight. It's understandable. I was shaky too early on. Let's not kid ourselves.
So if they add a third coach, I don't necessarily think that'll be a bad thing. It's just an extra set of eyes on things, and if you can get somebody who's more of an overall coach, like a general coach, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's an extra set of eyes. It's an extra perspective. You know, maybe Yogi sees things one way. Maybe Verde sees it the same way. Tocchet sees it the same way. Maybe the fourth guy doesn't see it the same way, and that's something they can definitely look at. So I don't necessarily think bringing on another coach or maybe making him like an associate coach isn't necessarily a bad thing. So it's maybe you go outside of the box and you don't bring in anybody big, but maybe you see if maybe like a guy like I don't even want to say his name because I know it's probably not going to happen. Maybe like bring in a Luke Richardson, somebody who can help on both sides of the puck. He can help work at the power play, help work at the PK. I was always a big fan of his, and as a coach, especially defensively, because and I said this last week, Chicago wasn't relevant very much under Luke Richardson, but defensively, I always thought they were really good. Like I said, Mrazek looked pretty solid in net because the defense played well in front. I just don't necessarily think he would take the position. But with
Yogi, that's right.
with what Robert was saying was, with Yogi on the power play, Verity on the penalty kill, where does that leave Luke Richardson? So maybe I don't know. I'm not exactly sure because I think I may have just talked myself out of it, and so.
But you didn't even need my help there. That's awesome.
No, I think I just talked myself out. I think just rock with what you got for now. Let's just see how it goes in the first year.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I mean, and defining there is that Yogi being on the power play and Verde being on the penalty kill. Like I said, I think that's going to be also important, right? To have that other voice on the PK and really build upon what the team did well, right? You're talking about a team that scored a lot, their fair share of shorthanded goals, right? So know how to utilize that talent. Now, I am in on Haig. And if you get a Shabanov, yes, Robert made another good point that maybe a Bobby Brink could be expendable at that point, but I don't think so though, because Bobby Brink brings it every night, and you're talking about different, potentially different positions too. So, if the price is lower, I'm in on Haig. How can you not be with that size? It allows you absolutely to move on from Risto as well, right? If you can, work that deal out as well, but if you add Haig and you're not able to get rid of Risto, then you just increase that defensive depth as well as the size, and maybe you let York walk. But if it takes Bobby Brink to get Haig, I think I'd rather just re-sign York and get bigger elsewhere, Brian.
Yeah, I'm not big on Haig. I mean, I think I commented on this one that Swoopy put out there. He doesn't wow me as a defender. I don't think he really positions himself well. I don't necessarily think that I don't like him. I think he's a product of being in Vegas. Last year he was a -2. He's a +20 for his career, but I don't see him as more than maybe a top 6, maybe a second pairing defender at best. And I'd rather hold on to a lot of these guys right now for the fact that it's a new coach, new system. Let's see how they utilize the system that Tocchet has in place. I think York's going to have a better year now that Torts is out of here. I think Brink is about to break out. I don't think he's going to be anything more than a 30 goal scorer, but even still, that's not necessarily a bad thing in this league. He's going to be a strong middle six player. I think that with his intangibles and where he was drafted, I think I can't give up on him. I can't because you can find another big body defenseman. You can probably get rid of Merka in this draft. He's a big body, and I think he's a bigger, better, more physical defenseman than Nick Hague is.
Not bad.
So I mean, you can go Merka and you get that big body, and then you have more of a more control under him. And I just want to see his contract real quick because I don't necessarily think it's a horrible contract, but I do think it's I do think it's a little outlandish. Actually, he's an RFA, so that's actually not too bad. But the question to me is going to be how much is he going to want? What are you giving up for an RFA? That would be my thing.
Fair enough.
That actually scares me a little bit. Give up York, give up York, give up. No, I don't want to give up Brink. Obviously, we're not giving up on Forrester. He resigned, but I mean, there's a lot out there that I would rather have over Nick Hague. I'd rather work with the defense they have now, figure out a spot to get Andre back in there, because I know somebody said it. I forget who it was, but somebody said it. Hang on, I'm looking. What's up, SJM? Sorry, I'm all over the place right now. My brain's going crazy.
That's all right. I'll roll up some comments. We got Jason A Team hashtag SBLIX. I miss the black Flyers jerseys when Briere was playing, teaming in all them boys 2006, 2010. Agreed. I do like the black alternate that they had that stemmed from their outdoor game, right? With the opposite, the retro of the candy corn, and they still utilize that, but nothing beats that one. I got a Mike Richards, one of those.
I miss those jerseys. I had a card. I can't find the comment, but it is what it is. But
there you go. Brink plays hard and has some offensive talent. That's what I love to see, man. He's just a hard worker. I don't like to get rid of hard workers.
Same. I actually I like this comment because honestly, Robbie, I love Coots too. And you know what? He's always going to be that silky guy. That's going to be my thing from now on. I'm going to hashtag that silky. I don't necessarily know if his best days are behind him yet. He finally got through a full season without having any issues last year. I think he's finally healthy. I want to see what he does in one more year. I think after this year, they can actually buy him out. So worst case scenario is that is the worst case scenario. You buy him out and you let him walk and we pay him for the next 5 years, but actually be 6 years, I think. But I think he's finally healthy. I think he's going to be okay. I'm excited to see what Coots has. Just put him on the third line. Let him play third line center. I don't think he needs to play anything more than that.
Agreed, and be that leader, right? Mm-hmm. Be that Dustin Brown type. What I really expect, and especially on the defensive side of the game, which we saw flashes of last year, but we need to see on a more consistent basis. And now you have a full year at post-operation, post-injury under your belt. I'm expecting a bounce back for Coots, especially on the defensive side. And he can be that, it would be, we just need that glimpse until his contract's over for that shutdown center, right? That would always go in and shut down the other team's top center. I mean, is that a pipe dream? It could be, but I think it's within the realm of possibility.
Mm-hmm. Jason
Robertson?
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah. $7.5 million for 1 year. What's it going to take though? We were talking about this at work today. I think it's just going to take maybe a first this year, give him a first next year, and maybe an NHL ready prospect, because they have to clear the cap space in Dallas. They want to shed Jason Robertson's contract to try and extend Mikael Granlund, which makes a little bit less sense to me, but they might be able to get Granlund cheaper than Robertson. What about Sam Bennett?
I'd be more interested in Sam Bennett, to be honest, right? Because of what, more fits more of a need, right? And I mean, I want to say that there would be less financials involved, but that becomes a little less of a concern as we're going to see the biggest, steepest rise in the NHL cap since it was instituted coming into this next offseason. So, free agency. So I mean, like I'd be interested in both, right? But Sam Bennett, I think, would be my preference. What say you, Brian?
No, I'm with you. I think I would rather have Jason Robertson because I think he's more realistically going to leave Dallas. I don't see Sam Bennett leaving Florida. They've actually even, there's reports out there that they've actually started talking about an extension already. So,
Right.
He's going to get a raise, and there's going to be guys to go. I think I'm a big believer Ekblad's not staying in Florida. He's probably going to wind up leaving. So that's going to free up some money to bring Sam Bennett back. I think he's a big piece of their success, and they're going to do everything they can to keep him there.
Right.
I don't see him
leaving. Why would he want to leave with no state income tax, right?
Right.
According to Gary Bettman, is a myth that is what players decide on doing, where they locate. But I think it's a big factor. I think we've seen it in other sports as well. So yeah, why would he want to leave, right? Yeah. But why would maybe they sell Ekblad on that as well? Lenny chiming in. I'm still big on Marco Rossi, again, a smaller player, so I question how many smaller dudes we can have. It's one or the other for me, right? Like if you were to get a Marco Rossi, then you're immediately out on Shabanov, right? And I would be open to that, but they wanted Lenny. They wanted too much. They wanted Forrester, a high pick, first round pick. It wasn't worth it. And by all accounts, I believe the Flyers are out on Marco Rossi. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah, they are out on Marco Rossi. They've had the discussions. While the only reason why they want to move him is because of what he's asking for as far as his AVV goes, or AAV, he's wanting like 8.5. The Wild want to give him more of a bridge deal, more of a prove it deal, and he doesn't want it. So they shopped him to Philly. Briere doesn't want to pay it either, which I don't blame him. If you're not giving Tyson Forster that money, why are you going to give Marco Rossi that money? You know what I mean? So that puts them out on Rossi, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. I don't want them going after any UFAs in this draft, in this class anyway, because I think next year's is going to be better. You can make a push for some of these other bigger name guys that are going to be available. If Edmonton loses the cup, I do think McDavid hits the open market. Kirill Kaprizov could hit the open market and wind up signing a massive contract somewhere. Maybe those are one of the two guys that you can lure to Philly if you put them in the right spot, and set yourself up for success and be like, hey, we're a piece or two away. We could use you here. We'll pay you the money that you're asking for. And boom, next thing you know, you got a cup contender. I just don't see any of those type of players in this free agency class. Go out and get an RFA, absolutely, but I don't see them going after any UFAs in this one. I don't think there's enough talent out there to make this team any better than what they already are. And I think you need to let some of these guys absolutely 110% take the minutes and see what they can do. The first 2 years here with Tocchet, for me, are going to be a wash. Year 3 is where it's going to start mattering for me with what Rick Tocchet does and where this team finishes.
That's a good point. That is a good point. I think it is for the long term. What's up, Shane? Hi, I love Flyers. Are we going to use all these picks and use FA to make a team to compete for the cup? Danny Briere has come out and said it's the time for addition is now. So I do expect to make a splash. I think Brian makes a great point that next offseason, after you go into the 2026-27 offseason, is going to be hella better on the free agency market. I'm looking at you, Quinn Hughes, where there's a relationship with one Rick Tocchet. He would look so good in orange and black.
Yes. And it puts him close to his brothers.
Right. So if they are on the quieter side as to your expectations, don't be downtrodden. I think there's going to be some offer sheets laid on some RFAs. Marco Rossi could be involved in that as well. But yeah, the time for they really put the organization back. They infused the winning culture with Torch. He came in, he shook up the team, he ran them hard in camp, he built that hunger, right? And then you infused that Flyers tradition that carries forth from Ed Snyder, to some people's chagrin, with a little nepotism, bringing in a lot of former Flyers back, first with Danny Briere, then Keith Jones, then Rick Tocchet. But the combination, as we're seeing, is really resulting in some new actions with creative bridge deals, as we talked about last week, Brian, rather than getting laden down with long-term contracts that are harder to move. So I don't expect them to all of a sudden want to sign a guy to a 10-year, 14-year deal like we've seen in the past, right? As you move forward, it could be a little longer deal when you talk of Quinn Hughes. But for now, short-term creative deals, and I expect Danny Briere to go for his guys, whether that be in free agency, whether that be in the draft. If Roger McQueen's his guy, to your point earlier, Brian, don't think I didn't hear you, right? He's going to go get him like he got Chetlenchenko, and that has worked out pretty well so far, on top of a slew of other guys with Denver Barkey, right? Oliver Bonk, Alex Bump, right? Emil Andre, who we saw up last year on the defensive side. So ultimately, I think you have a lot of pieces. You got a lot of depth. They need to trim the small defensemen because you have, with Drysdale and York, you have two of the same type player, right? That sometimes falters on opposite ends, right? Where Drysdale, his defense can be called into question. Cam York can disappear on the offensive side, right? So ultimately, it's going to be some addition through subtraction is my ultimate point there, Brian. So, but the moves right now, when you bring in a Rick Tocchet, right, there's still a little bit of that, okay, it's time to start getting that playoff experience, right, as you add more and more pieces and then become a legit playoff contender that can maybe potentially sip from Lord Stanley's cup, by all God.
Yeah, no, for sure. Shane's making me feel old. I'm seeing some of his comments. He's only 17. Jeez Louise, dude. God.
Love to have you. You have a lot more patience with the Flyers for winning than us older time folks, but we are a family here, young and old.
But I mean, it hasn't been that long. I mean, they just got to the Eastern Conference Finals in the COVID year, so it's only been about 5 years. It was acting like it's been 15.
Yeah.
Gosh, golly. No, we appreciate all the comments. As always, Jason. Yeah, they need to look into goalie prospects. They need to keep that carousel going, man. There's a couple in this draft that could be good either tandem. One I think is going to be a good tandem guy. The other one I think is going to be a good franchise guy. So we'll see what happens there. Here you go. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Shane. Shane says, guys, I'm 17. What's it like watching the Flyers when they were good? Last time they were good was 2019, so haven't seen them be good since then.
You know, going back, this team, you could regularly bank them for 98 to 105 points, Shane. There was a time in the late 90s, early 2000s where they were that consistent playoff contender, you know, to equate to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And that even dipped into, you know, the Claude Giroux eras, you know, the Mike Richards eras, you know, of the late 2010s as they made a cup final against the Blackhawks. So that's what they're trying to get it back to. And you see the blueprints and you see the way it's shaping up, right? It's just great. Hey, Dada, we need your opinion on Verde. Was it a good hire or not? Is he going to lead our PK? For sure. What's up? What's up?
My man, Don. Yeah, I mean, I listen, it was just a different time. It's a different game than it was a few years ago. It's even a different game than it was last year, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. But I mean, just watching a team in the 90s and the 2000s was just different. You know, this was a team where when Bobby Clark was running the team, you know, he was making splashes left and right. And I think that's what this fan base has become accustomed to. And I think seeing this team in a rebuild right now, trying to make the smarter moves instead of going out and signing the guys like Tony Amani, Jeff Hackett, John Van Beesbrook, going out getting your Jason Schmitz, your Chris Prongers. I think it's different. I just don't know if a lot of these fans know how to handle it. But I mean, right now, what this team is doing, and I think it's a smart way to do it, is, you know, you're holding on to some of your veterans until the contracts are up, trade them, get something else. And then you're giving your younger players prove-it deals, so you're not locking yourself up and tying your own hands in a situation where, if, let's say, let's say if Tippett has another off year, he's on a 8-year deal. And he'd be in the second year of the 8-year deal, I believe. It's going to be tough to move if he starts playing poorly. And that's not a Danny Briere mistake. I believe that was a Chuck Fletcher mistake if I'm not wrong. Which, let's be real, I probably am. So he's not tying his own hands with some of these deals. I think this is a smart way to do it. Let these guys prove themselves. And in the meantime, you're weeding out some more of the dead weight. That's the hard part, is weeding out the dead weight, seeing who's going to work and who's not going to, but still being able to get value when you go to move on from these guys. So that's something that's going to be huge for this team over the next year or two. And that's why I don't think they're going to have such a active off season this year, because, again, you're shedding dead weight. 2026, I think, is the year that they become super active. I think they're going to add this offseason, but I don't think they're going to be super active. If they are, I'm going to be I'm going to be stunned. And you know what? That's just going to tell me more that this hiring of Rick Tocchet is going to be accelerating the rebuild and getting back to the playoffs, which may or may not be a good thing. So time will tell on that one.
Right.
You feel old, Shane. Stop it. You're 17. You feel old. I'm not going to tell you my age, though, dude.
I believe, yeah, and as you said it too, I was sure of it. Yeah, Danny Briere did sign Tippett.
Oh, he did sign Tippett. Okay.
It was one of his first signings. So it's not, like I said, I mean, the thing of it is, though, is that 8 years maybe hamstrings you, but it's a cap hit of 6.2.
It's not terrible. Okay.
It's not terrible. You know what I mean? So, let's not ignore a couple factors here. We acquired Tippett by trading probably our last generational talent, and that's Claude Giroux, right? So you have to invest in that when you trade a Claude Giroux, right? And I'm not saying you have to go buy, and Giroux as a rookie was amazing. Yeah, absolutely, Jason. So, and you know, Tippett's still young. You know, I believe you need to be patient, right? To where you don't have to even look to move him right away. You know, if in your scenario, we're saying if he has, you know, if there's a further decline, that becomes an issue, right? But I think a lot of the needles point up, for his development, and I think you have to be patient with that. Just as we were patient with other guys. You get to a point where if you have an opportunity to move, then you have an opportunity to move, right? But like for example, if Minnesota wanted an Owen Tippett and a draft pick rather than Tyson Forrester, I would have been interested in hearing that conversation, right? But I get the vibe, and this is something that you sold me on a few weeks ago, that I like the Tocchet and Tippett connection. It even just sounds good, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's the reason why I'm not ready to give up on some of these guys yet. Everybody wants to trade some of these guys out of town, but in 4 or 5 years, you'd be like, why did we trade them? Oh, these guys are so good. We should have them, because we did have them.
Right.
We did have them, and this fan base chased them out of town. Oh, I shouldn't say the fan base, but the fan base wanted them chased out of town. So, they would move on. York, I think, is going to be fine under Tocchet. I think these guys, I don't think by the end of Torts' reign here, I think a lot of heads were clashing. And I think Torts had enough, because remember, back in Toronto at his post-game conference, Tortorella did say, I don't know how to coach these guys. That says a lot. And also, this is also coming from a coach who doesn't necessarily know how to fix certain situations, because he's never been in it, because he never played. I think this is where having a guy like a Rick Tocchet is going to be extremely beneficial for that particular reason. He's been in the situations before. He's been in a situation where he throws pucks on net and he can't hit the goddamn back of the net for anything. So he could be able to help Tippett slow his game down a little bit, where Torts couldn't. I like this. I want to give some of these guys a chance. There's a trade deadline for a reason.
Right.
If they're clicking from the jump, awesome. If they're not clicking by the deadline, move them. But they need an opportunity to see what they can do under this new head coach, because I think that's going to be massive, and that's either going to help this rebuild go faster or it's going to help to take the rebuild a step back. And I think we need to figure out that by letting guys like Tippett start the season as a Flyer. Let York start the season as a Flyer. Brink, don't trade him for Nick Hague. I think defensively this team is where they want to be. If you bring in another guy like Nick Hague, you're putting another log. Oh, big ass spider just crawled by me.
Don't say that word.
Wait till you see it. Oh man, that thing was massive. Yeah, you don't bring in Hague because that's another logjam that could potentially block Emil Andre or Oliver Bonk or anybody else that they may potentially draft in this draft class. So, right now, add where you can, add where you have the space, but don't go crazy. That's just me. These guys deserve a shot with Tocchet, and then if they're not working out in a couple months by the trade deadline, by all means, figure out a way to move them and get some value back.
And I agree with you. I think you can even have more patience. You invested on them. Do all contracts work out? No, that's why you sign a contract, right? But we've seen a lot of, good things from Tippett. We could see some more good things from Tippett. It could certainly go that direction. And in the end, it's not costing the team a lot of money per year, too. So SJM saying Daly is my age. Come on, Brian.
I don't know how he knows my age. I'm not necessarily sure I even told him my age. Actually, I'm older. Believe it or not. I'm not your age. I'm older. I will be the big 4-0 in about a month and a half.
There's a good shot. Ian. Certainly, we're about to wrap, but I'm glad you tuned in. Check us out from the beginning. Love the hiring, fellas. Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. Yes. The seal of confidence. But yeah, we gotta head on out. So let me first pay some bills. I want to talk to you about our doc. Make him yours. It's Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy. He's got 2 locations if you're in the South Jersey area, in Burlington and Cherry Hill. So, or you can visit him online, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Lots of home remedies and good tips on that website. So it's a great conversation. Thanks, fam, for joining us as always. Hopefully, maybe I don't think we're going to hear about Shabanov till after the draft, definitively as free agency opens, but maybe we'll have some better, some more news. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that bell for notifications to get tuned into everything that A2D Radio is doing. Matt and Sudi, we miss you this week. See you back next week. I will be off. I will be in Canada on vacation. So, and Motherland, maybe I'll tune in. Maybe I'll just jump in on the stream for a hot second from my phone. But that shit, it costs a lot for Canada. Trust me. It costs even more now, I'm sure, by all accounts. But Brian Daly, this has been Rob Povia. Thank you so much, fam. Love you. Catch you next Tuesday, 9 p.m. only here on A2DRadio.com.
Appreciate you all. Love all the comments. We'll see you all next week.